Okay, so we just wanted to make this little update for a couple of reasons. First is it's good to understand what is going on in the Red Sea. This is from January of 2024 with the Houthi attacks on international shipping and the US-UK reprisals. As you can see from the image there, the US and UK launched airstrikes on various parts of the Yemen in Houthi rebel-controlled areas. But one of the reasons why this is an important case study is because it hits almost every part of theme one of the geography syllabus. Key term is maritime choke point. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about that choke point. But if you notice that it hits four real key issues, examine the reasons for geopolitical tension in a maritime area, the debate about the strategic importance as areas of international conflict or cooperation, the importance of maritimisation in the organisation of the global economy, and we'll see the impact this is having on the global economy, and also with reference to Britain or France and other examples, discuss the role of major economic powers in these areas. And although Britain joined the US in the airstrikes, you'll see that France also has an influence in this region. So if we move on to essentially have a look at the geography, the key geography of the area, the map on the left shows you the Arabian Peninsula and the area we're talking about. And really it's the Bab al-Mandab Strait. The Bab al-Mandab Strait is between Yemen and out towards the Horn of Africa by Djibouti. And it's a major maritime waterway leading up towards the northwest and the Suez Canal and the markets of Europe. It's one of the most vital international waterways. It controls entrance to the Red Sea and therefore to European markets through the Suez Canal. And it's a really intensive area of international shipping. It links the east and the west. So a lot of oil comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, comes around the Arabian Peninsula and up there into Europe, but also a lot of shipping, container shipping from China comes through to its European markets this way. So it's a crucial meeting point of international trade. And to try and give you some idea of its importance, about 30% of all the global oil traffic from the Arabian Gulf comes through there using the Suez Canal, which was opened in 1869. The strait itself is only about 32 kilometers wide, and in reality it's a lot narrower than that because of the nature of the water. The actual area of sea that can take these huge container ships then narrows down to somewhere in the region of 16 to 18 kilometers because of the depth of the water. And about 10% of all global traffic comes through here, but about 30% of the oil traffic from the Arabian Gulf, and about 30% of all the global container shipping that comes through from China comes through this strait here. Now, using the strait means you don't have to sail all around Africa and can shorten journeys to Europe by about 2 weeks, with the obvious knock-on impact on the economy and on industrial production. It is also, when we start looking at areas of cooperation and conflict, at the minute the news is all about conflict, but it is an area of cooperation. You can see on the map on the left where there are already lots of foreign military bases in the area and lots of countries having an interest in the area, with China, Japan, France and the United States got established military bases there. The photograph at the top of the screen there is of the Chinese military base in Djibouti, where you can see they are all looking very smart, but it's one of just 4 major bases in the area. The UK doesn't have a base in the area because the UK can access the area directly from the Eastern Mediterranean, from Cyprus, where there's a huge RAF airbase there. What also makes it an additionally interesting area is for 2 reasons. The first of all is the map at the bottom. You will know very well it's the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, and the Chinese have invested a huge amount in here. You can see on the map there the shipping route around the Horn of Africa, going up through the Red Sea, up through the Suez Canal. This route is an essential part of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, of which they've invested hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And as a result, they've got a vested interest in it moving slowly. So even though it's a UK US attack on what seemingly is a Middle Eastern issue, it actually has repercussions as part of globalization for the entire global economy, and therefore it has become an area of cooperation. And the main cooperation so far, before the airstrikes, was Operation Prosperity Guardian. Operation Prosperity Guardian was led by the US, but involved lots and lots of other countries, mostly countries in which ships sailed under their flag. So included in this were the Bahrainis. There was an Italian influence there, Canadian, Dutch, Norwegian, um, Spanish, as well as British and American. And though they used naval vessels to try to protect shipping that was coming through, because most of the attacks that were taking place on the ships were via drone attacks from Houthi rebel areas. Now, what we need to do is we need to understand why this is happening and why there is tension in the region. Well, I mean, the tension essentially goes back to 632 AD and the death of the Prophet Muhammad, when there was a schism in Islam between Shia and Sunni, and Iran is the dominant Shia Muslim country in the world. About 90% of the people who live in Iran are Shia Muslims. And even though it's the minority between Shia and Sunni, they carry a huge influence due to their Iran has got a geographical impermanence because of its mountain ranges, as well as huge reservoirs of oil and gas. Now, Iran is also has influence across the whole region. In particular, in the news at the minute, they are the main paymasters of Hamas in Gaza and also in Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And as a result, the recent spate of attacks and reprisals in and around the Gaza Strip has meant that because Iran supports Hamas, they've inevitably become involved. Iran are also the people who underwrite the Houthi rebellion in Yemen. The Yemenese government is a Sunni Muslim government that is supported, as you can see in the diagram to the top right hand corner, is supported heavily by Saudi Arabia and by the UAE, who also support other anti-Houthi groups in the Yemen. And of course, Saudi Arabia is very much supported by the US, the UK, and France, due to the way it allows them to have a military presence in the area. So you've got essentially a microcosm of conflicts across the region happening in Yemen, and the Houthis in an act of support for the Hamas, the Iranian-backed Hamas, and increasingly Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, acted against who they perceive to be the supporters of Israel, which is mostly the British, American, and Western powers, in their reprisals that happened in Gaza. Just to give you some idea of how deeply embedded the Western powers are in the Middle East, if you look at the diagram at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see Middle East military spending, and how it all goes around. The 10 largest arms importers are all on there. UAE, Qatar, Algeria, Egypt, and Saudi are all in the Gulf. And you can see there where they get their weaponry from. They're coming from Western powers, from the US, from France, from Germany. Russia's got a heavy influence in this area too. So this, the Middle Eastern melting pot, if you like, is essentially a confluence of religious, political, and economic issues all coming together. So what's happened is the Houthi rebels, in reprisal for what is going on in other areas of the Middle East, the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. And when I say Houthi rebels, I want you to try to lose from your mind the image that's perpetrated in a lot of Western media, where they love to show photographs of what look like teenagers and a pretty ramshackle bunch hanging off the back of a Toyota Land Cruiser, firing weapons indiscriminately into the air, looking like they've just kind of decided they're going to form a rebellion that particular day. The Houthi rebels are an extremely well-financed, well-resourced, well-disciplined military force. So I want you to lose the idea in your head that this is some kind of ramshackled street gang. They're a very, very, very effective and well-organized fighting force. And as a result, their attacks on shipping are taken extremely seriously. They've been very effective at attacking those ships. And as I said, it's been taken really seriously. If you look in November 2023, there's the tracking map of container ships. You'll see, as we already know, from maritime areas, them coming a lot out of eastern China, sailing through the Strait of Malacca, across the Indian Ocean, and up through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal to Europe. And since the attacks by January 2024, you can see that there's been a huge rerouting of shipping around the Cape of Good Hope, around the southern tip of Africa, to avoid the Bab el Mandab Strait with all of its issues at the moment. So you can see the difference on the top. It usually makes around about a 2-week difference, all told, with stops for refueling and things such as that, and resupplying the ships. So it can make a huge difference in the amount of nautical miles that have to be sailed, and also it can cause a huge delay in shipping moving through, particularly from eastern China and the South China Sea round through into Europe. So the real implication here, when we start to look at the impact of maritimisation on the global economy, is that it can be quite a fragile supply line. Already people are writing articles about how this Red Sea crisis could have real implications for the global economy. So ships, as I've said on the bullet points to the right hand side there, there's delays to supply lines, which can have a knock-on effect to all kinds of industrial production. There's increased fuel costs, and a big one is increase in insurance costs, because increasingly the cost of insuring these vessels to sail around the world is going up and up and up. Some were saying up to a 4-fold increase in the last month alone. On average, that can mean for a container ship moving from Eastern Asia all the way through to Europe, that it can add around about $1 million of costs onto a large container ship coming through. And as a result, 6 of the top 10 shipping companies are now boycotting this route and saying that they won't sail through the Red Sea. So this has got huge implications. Most of these ships are imports that are coming in that can supply other industries in Europe and North America. And already there are predictions of inflationary pressures, just as the economy is starting to recover from the economic shock of the Ukrainian dispute, that then we could start to see inflation rising again, prices rising, pressures on incomes, and pressures on costs and businesses in Europe and North America. So you can see how this small ripple, what seemingly looks like a very localized dispute, can affect the whole of the global economy. And of course, central to that supply line is China. So although China historically have been supporters of Iran and supporters of the Houthi rebels, they've been conspicuous in their silence. And the UN has been particularly unanimous and uniform at the minute in its condemnation of the Houthi rebels, because of course this is having an impact across the entire globe and the entire economy. And the global economy dropped by about 1.3% in December, and many people attributed this to what's going on in the Red Sea. So as we know, the US and the UK launched airstrikes on those Houthi rebels to try to stop these attacks on shipping and to try to bring back calm and confidence. But even if they do stop the attacks, it's probably going to take months for shipping to return to normal. You can see some of the headlines there that we saw. Iran-backed rebels are vowing unimaginable revenge. Britain and America must be ready to bomb Houthi bases to rubble. So certainly this, although the attacks, of course, were on the land, this is a maritime area of conflict. Also, you could argue, due to the operations of the international forces there, and an area of cooperation to try and combat this. There's a little tweet there when the US Central Command announced their attacks. One of the issues that people are worried about is an escalation across the region. There's all kinds of discussion whether this has been done to try to drag the rest of the world into the current dispute in Israel and Gaza. And as recently as in the last 48 hours from the filming of this video, Iran did capture an oil tanker off Oman to try to turn maybe the Strait of Hormuz, one of the major oil exporting areas from the Arabian Peninsula, turn that into also a disputed choke point. So watch this space if it escalates into that region there. And as I said, the rebels are warning that there'll be reprisals for this, and many people scoff at that, but I think they maybe do that at their leisure because, as I said, this isn't a street gang. This is a really well organised and disciplined fighting force, and there's a chance that this could be something that rolls on for a short while. Right in the very top right-hand corner, just something to leave you with is the fact that this year is going to be a year of elections around the world, including in the US and in the UK, and therefore, some people are starting to debate whether actually this really is an issue that's been caused by maritime conflict or cooperation, or whether it's just simply posturing by governments in the US and the UK trying to show their strength to local voters in the UK and the US in an attempt to access the ballot box. I would say, maybe even if there is some truth in that, the facts speak for themselves, that there certainly is an issue here around maritime cooperation and conflict and impact on the global economy. And the same accusation could be levelled, of course, at the Iranians and the Houthi rebels, that they are doing these attacks to try to show their strength to their current support in their own internal conflicts. So it certainly is a factor, but there is enough evidence that that the international conflict is driving the entire conflict. Okay, so a great case study, as we said, something to think about, something to watch in the news, and certainly to refer to, because, as I said, it hits so many of the different key issues in the geography syllabus. Okay, thanks very much.